I am Mr. Beat.
I am Mr. Beat.
Hey, it's Mr. Beat here. Hello, I'm Mr. Beat. Who do you think contenders of President 2028 are?
Hey, it's Mr. Beat here.
Hey, it's Mr. Beat here. Hey, it's Mr. Beat here. Hey, it's Mr. Beat here. Hey, it's Mr. Beat here. Hey, it's Mr. Beat here. Hey, it's Mr. Beat here. On the Democratic side, I see probably Kamala Harris for sure. Kamala Harris, I just don't think she's it. I think a lot of Democrats are ready to move on and try someone else. I think that she's often remembered for, in terms of before entering federal government, for her time as Attorney General of California. She was Attorney General in California all the way from for 6 years, 2010 to 2016. Then she served as a senator before being picked as the running mate for Joe Biden in 2020. Before she was his running mate, she ran for president. She gained a name for herself as a senator as being a tough interrogator at a lot of committee meetings, for example. However, she's also been criticized for being a, quote, cop for her time as attorney general, being tough on crime, especially notably, she went after drug offenders, those who broke the law, specifically with marijuana. No, we should probably say, though, that despite that, she's changed her views on marijuana. She now calls for its decriminalization, and she supports Biden's calls for pardoning offenders of breaking marijuana laws, I should say. I'm not sure about other drugs, but that's one change you could say about her. But she kind of gained that reputation as a cop, being tough on the law and order candidate back in 2020 when she ran for president. As far as her likability, she's not as charismatic, I think, as a lot of, as Barack Obama, for example, or Michelle Obama, even for that matter. So she struggled speaking. She's gotten notably better, I think, in the last few months. Maybe she's been practicing, but she still kind of has that awkward flair about her. She gets made fun of for her laugh. Do you think Harris could convince ex-Haley voters, as they have completely opposite positions on abortion? That's a good question. I'm skeptical. I don't think she's going to convince many ex-Haley voters. However, maybe on foreign policy, they'll still be swayed, because they probably agree, for example, on Ukraine, on support for Ukraine. So I think Harris being the front runner would be bad. To be honest, I'm way farther left than Dems, so I'm already disillusioned, but I feel Kamala would disillusion more young people on the left. She does not have such a hardliner position on Israel. She's not as quick to defend the actions of Israel. I recommend, Jules, that you look up everything she said about Israel, because she does not just blindly support Israel like Biden does. There is a slight distinction there, at least. And then when you compare that to the alternatives, which at this point, Trump, or you could say Robert F. Kennedy, both Robert F. Kennedy and Trump are even more hardliners in terms of just blindly supporting Israel. So that's definitely worth considering. America is not ready for a female president, unfortunately. I would say that in 2016, I think it's changed a lot. I think since 2016, there's been enough change. I think we're ready for it now. Tim Walz, probably less likely, I would say. And remember, I'm extremely biased when I'm talking about this guy, because Tim Walz used to be a social studies teacher. I spent 12 years in the classroom as a social studies teacher. Tim Walz literally taught geography. He was a football coach. He was a state champion, apparently. Also, he is from Nebraska. I used to live in Nebraska. So understand my bias when I'm talking about this. I'm going to be biased to think this guy is probably better than he is. He was a faculty advisor of the first Gay-Straight Alliance at Mankato West High School. I think that's pretty notable. It kind of shows that he is socially progressive. So he served in Congress for representing Minnesota's 1st District all the way from 2007 to 2019. So
12 years. And then the reason why he left office, well, he became the governor of Minnesota. So this was now when he was in Congress, what was he? What committees was he on? Well, he's on the Agriculture Committee, Committee on Veterans Affairs, and they, if you go to his Wikipedia page, it kind of goes through like some of his policy positions. But this guy clearly leans to the left. I would say further to the left than Joe Biden for sure, and maybe even further left than Kamala Harris. Now, that said, if you look at his policy positions, like I don't see anything too like out there. It's pretty, like, okay, he wanted to raise the minimum wage. He wanted to allow Medicare to negotiate pharmaceutical drug prices. However, I think some things are revealing the fact that he has a 100% rating from Planned Parenthood. Or at least he did in 2012. Also from the ACLU. He's done well with unions over the years, for sure. However, he's also been seen as a bipartisan politician. Walz was ranked 7th most bipartisan House member during the 114th Congress. The most bipartisan member from Minnesota, meaning he's worked with Republicans in the past regularly. I think he got most of his attention as governor. So if you look at his time as governor, that seems to be where he's kind of maybe shifted more to the left. He's also been governor in Minnesota during a pretty tough time. The George Floyd murder, that happened when he was governor of Minnesota in 2020. Also, the COVID-19 pandemic, he led the state during that tough time. He was able to get the legislature to pass major police reform legislation in response to George Floyd's murder. Also, he was able to get extra funding for education, the legalization of recreational cannabis. Because he was a public school teacher for 20 years, he's been he's made it a priority to whenever you can make education or school lunches more available for students, he's gone all for it. He's vocally supported LGBTQ rights, labor, worker rights. He's also like a strong supporter of gun rights, although some have criticized the fact that he does want to see universal background checks and red flag laws. But that's an interesting kind of thing that makes him a little bit different, more in line, I think, with I would say more rural Democrats or Midwestern Democrats. That's a big thing, though. He's from the Midwest. The reason why he's been such a sensation on social media has been there have been clips of him that have gone viral. Clips of him just going on rants on various corporate media outlets, but also just, his own videos he's released on his own social media. There's one where he's at the state fair with his daughter that I think really resonated with a lot of folks. There is a lot of clips of him. Actually, he's responsible more than anyone for this new branding of Republicans as, quote, weird. That whole thing started because of him. So he's a very good communicator. He's very effective with his messaging, good at talking, uses words that are not big, which is similar to Trump. Trump's a master at communication. I think so is Tim Walz in terms of just reaching ordinary people. And so once Americans hear him more, they're probably going to be more impressed, even if they disagree with him politically. Because, yeah, like I said, he does lean to the left on most issues. This, to me, demonstrates that both Harris and the Democratic Party have acknowledged that we are in a new populist era. And finally, they have realized that, maybe Bernie Sanders was right on a lot of these things. Maybe we do need to listen more to the working class that we have abandoned for many decades. Maybe we do need to stop focusing so much on identity politics and social issues as much as economic issues and saving jobs. All those jobs lost in the Midwest in particular, all those jobs lost in rural America. I think the Democratic Party is finally starting to realize we need to reach out to these people aggressively, just like the Republican Party already has for the past 9 years with the rise of Trump. If you just look at his policy positions, I would say his policy positions are more in line with the majority of Americans than I think you realize, where Tim Kaine might have been more out of touch. For example, a quick example, an example I bring up a lot is legalization of cannabis. This is not something Tim Kaine was for when he was a running mate back in 2016. A different time, but still, at that time, cannabis was legal in a few states, a handful of states. Strong supporter of Ukraine, yep. I would say Israel-Palestine, I would say has had very reasonable takes, because it's not like I would say Walz has both expressed sympathy for those in Gaza, but at the same time, he was after October 7th, he had a lot of strong words to condemn Hamas. Jade, thank you. Walz is also a right to repair advocate. Yes, that's definitely something I strongly advocate for as well. And it's also bipartisan. Right to repair. Yes. The only reason why he started to become not very cool anymore in the 2024 election cycle was because you could tell he was starting to listen to his consultants, his advisors. Like I remember when he said he was talking trash about the Electoral College, and I was like, heck yeah, there you go. And then all of a sudden, like, he walked it back. I was like, oh no. And
yeah, it was so obvious.
Well, I know that Walz has a DUI from the 90s. However, I think the American public tends to be more forgiving of that, even though I think driving while under the influence is a pretty horrible thing to do. I think Tim Walz, though, is also kind of the future of the party, which is weird because he's also an old guy, but he doesn't sound like the others. So that's interesting. I could see like a ticket of AOC and Tim Walz doing really well. AOC, I think, will probably be the nominee for 2028 for the Democrats if they're smart. But I think that like she's kind of the future of the party at this point. When they try to get people excited about some of the old men that like, but you also have the populists, which I think Tim Walz might be in that category. Like. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez too. Like, I think that that's the way they should go. Doesn't mean they will. I mean,
if I'm Republican, I'm praying that AOC is the Democratic nominee. I feel like she would get rolled in that election. But then again, I thought Donald Trump would too. So
I was going to say. That's literally what I was going to say. I was like, that's what people remember. Hillary Clinton was saying, yeah, she wanted Trump to be her opponent.
I really thought Trump was the only Republican that could lose to Hillary Clinton.
Even AOC, who I think is another exciting possibility. Like, I think she just needs to unleash it. She kind of holds back, I think, a little bit. Also, she's extremely intelligent, and I think that actually works against her. We need somebody who just speaks like a seventh grader, who uses just common language. That's why Trump was so successful. Oh, you think AOC would be disliked? I mean, so was Trump. So I don't know what your point is there. Trump was probably the most disliked candidate ever, and he got elected twice to president. The bottom line is the Democrats need someone to vote for, not against, and they need somebody with something different. They need so if it's not her, it's got to be someone like her. Andy Beshear, that's another one. Yep, Andy Beshear might be a possibility because he's from Kentucky. He's a very popular governor. Yeah, like you have your Midwestern, more moderate Democrat who is like Shapiro or Beshear. Although Beshear kind of leans a little bit further to the left, I think. I think Beshear definitely has this like very contagious energy. I don't necessarily think he's the best public speaker. I think sometimes he's a little awkward, but maybe that's part of the charm. So when I was watching him, that's what I noticed. I think that Tim Walz just talks better, but some of that just comes with experience. I mean, Beshear's not much older than me. He's in his 40s. He's a young dude. He'll get better. Although there was also a lot of grassroots support for Beshear, so it's important to acknowledge that. Probably Pete Buttigieg, because he's been out there a lot. Buttigieg is, the Secretary of Transportation for Biden, ran for president in 2020. He is also just a phenomenal speaker and communicator. I don't know if the country is ready for the first gay president or vice president. If Trump wins re-election and Kamala Harris loses, I think there's a really strong case for Buttigieg in 2028. Yeah. Oh, Gretchen Whitmer is another one. Yeah. I didn't bring up Gretchen Whitmer. That's another good possibility for 2028 for sure. Definitely. I know Gretchen Whitmer got some talk there, but she seems to not be as popular as she once was. She's the governor of Michigan. If Bernie was the nominee in 2016, Trump would have been destroyed in the election. Not destroyed, but I do think Bernie would have won. So many. Some estimates say at least 1 million, maybe even up to 2 million people in the United States, 2 million Americans who were Bernie supporters, Bernie Sanders supporters in the primaries, then went on in the general election to vote for Donald Trump. That's the group that I think has been the enigma for many years for the Democratic Party, and they finally figured it out. Oh, we need to reach these people. Actually, a lot of those people now are just vote third party. They are fed up entirely with the duopoly, but I get it. Bernie Sanders, by the way, he's more popular now than I think he's ever been. Like, have you noticed that?
In some ways, he was a little before his time because he's kind of the left's version of Trump in a sense. I mean, I don't want to compare. I'm not comparing the two, but I mean the against the mainstream of the party and the popular with a very different part of the party.
Yeah.
If Bernie Sanders came about now, he'd probably have a better chance than he did when he was running 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because a lot of the older Democrats are starting to finally come around like, oh, maybe he had a point. Maybe we shouldn't go with the status quo. Josh Shapiro or something, governor of Pennsylvania. For those people saying, oh, Josh Shapiro would have been a better pick, I think you have a good argument. I think Josh Shapiro is definitely somebody who would have broader appeal, especially among independents. But controversy with Josh Shapiro in the terms of like the fact that he had strong stances defending Israel, and I think some Democrats are worried about that. However, Josh Shapiro is extremely popular, so that's why I was assuming that he would be the pick. Cody, thank you. Shapiro also had a sexual harassment cover-up. Oh, did he? I didn't know about that. He's also an incredible speaker. He's beloved in Pennsylvania. He comes across as more moderate, even though he leans to the left pretty solidly as well. The main reason why Shapiro wasn't picked was his religion. Yeah, it's sad to say he's Jewish, and we still have that anti-Semitism that just will not go away in this country. Automatically, you got these people that will be mentioning Soros and all that crap. Yeah, so that's sad to say. Argonne, so glad Shapiro wasn't picked. Him being vice president would be disastrous for the people of Palestine. Okay. I bet you there's probably more people that share your sentiment. Ethan, thank you. Shapiro's Middle East stances would scare away younger voters. People have war fatigue right now. They certainly do, both on the left and the right. On the right, you hear a lot of people saying, why are we still giving weapons to Ukraine? On the left, you're saying, why are we still giving weapons to Israel? Yeah, so I understand. This is probably Walz is going to have more appeal with younger voters. Thoughts on Marianne Williamson? I mean, she's great, but it's similar to RFK Jr. She's kind of portrayed as somebody who's crazy. I don't agree with her on every issue. There's some issues, where she's a little out there, but also though she's really tapped into a lot of, progressivism. And when I say progressivism, I don't get it twisted with like the language I'm using. A lot of her views are with mainstream America, what I call the new silent majority, which issues that I would say 2/3 of all Americans agree on, such as universal health care. That's just a fact. These are mainstream political opinions. You may disagree with it, but that's just how the majority of Americans feel. She seems to be more connected with ordinary Americans than someone like, say, Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. But yeah, it's sad. Most media outlets didn't take her that seriously. Mark Kelly has also been floated, a senator from Arizona. I think he's somebody who has cross appeal in terms of definitely independents like him. Yeah, Kelly would have been another strong pick. I think especially since he's from a swing state. Yeah, I mean, I think maybe there were issues with him with labor unions is what I was hearing on social media. I mean, I like somebody like Raphael Warnock, because I think he's one of the best speakers I've ever heard in my entire life, but I don't think he has a chance. I think they need him in the Senate, actually. Nathaniel, what are your chances of Newsome running in 24 or 30? You mean 28 probably? Yeah, pretty good. He's always in discussions about being a future presidential nominee for sure. So pretty good. I won't put a number on it. But you have your more status quo Democrats, which I think, yeah, Gavin Newsome is probably in that category. RFK Jr. is a great man. I've said this before. I think he's a poor communicator, horrible at communication, which has really hurt him, similar to Biden. Not only his scraggly voice, but just he's not the most charismatic person. He does have the name recognition. If you go to his website, I agree with most of his policy positions. However, where he stands on vaccines, that's a non-negotiable for many. His vaccine positions in the past and some of his more conspiratorial-minded positions just aren't going to fly with normies. He's portrayed as somebody who's crazy. He would definitely be somebody who would try to unite the country. I think he has like less than 1% chance of pulling it off. He would have to get probably win at least one state, get electoral votes for one state. They would have to go to the House of Representatives. That's what would have to happen for him to win, I think, at this point. So thoughts on RFK's bear story from this weekend? Dumped a bear carcass in Central Park. I'm just something that is kind of refreshing about RFK Jr. Is that he's just like, well, the media is going to break this scandal about me. I might as well just, beat them to it and just announce it, be completely transparent about everything. And he's very transparent, and I appreciate that about him. But it's a crazy story that, yeah, I don't know much about it, but apparently he dumped a bear carcass in Central Park. You can look it up. I'm not joking. And remember, it's not just about, a lot of people realize that he's not going to win. But if you can get that threshold of 5%, you get extra federal funding for the next election for your political party. He's an independent, so it would have to be his political party to choose. I don't know what that would be, but I think that he's not going to win any electoral votes is the problem. However, I always say if you live in a safe blue state or a safe red state and, basically a non-swing state, then you're probably best to vote for the candidate who you believe in the most, because that's really what it should be about, supporting somebody you're truly excited about. Here in Kansas, I've often voted for third-party candidates because it's a solidly red state. It's probably going to go for Trump easily here yet again in 2024. So I would be more likely to give support to a third-party candidate. And plus, he's had some controversial positions on certain things, even though most of his platform is broadly appealing. I think the fact that he's been controversial, particularly with what he said about vaccines, and then how he communicates, I think has been really problematic for him. A sizable chunk of the American population is just screw it, I'm going to go for the brainworm guy. So that tells you a lot. Zane, do you think Trump will relinquish power if he wins? Yeah, if he dies. No, I don't know. That's a good question. That's what's kind of scaring a lot of people right now. I think he would, maybe. At some point he would be like, I'm tired of this crap, I'm leaving. You'd think. We're at a point now where we have, on the Republican side, is somebody who's a convicted felon, also, in court, accused, convicted of sexual assault. Somebody who's been accused of stealing classified documents, not giving them back to the FBI. Somebody who's been convicted of fraud. I just think that people are over corruption at this point. If you support Trump, you basically now okay, I can let corruption slide. And I think that's one of the main reasons why he's running, is to avoid punishment for alleged crimes. But yeah, I think in 2028, he's also going to be really old by that time. I think most Americans are going to want to move on. The other concerning things, I am concerned whenever you have free speech under attack. I do not, I get worried about that. We've had people deported just simply on their speech alone, and then immigrants, of course, are even those who are here legally. I feel like there's this chilling effect that they could be, taken away from their family at any moment. Will elections in 2028 happen? I mean, I think so. But the fact that he's bringing up, I'm going to run for another term, like, no, dude, that's unconstitutional. Is Trump unique in American history? Absolutely. No one else like him. Similar to Hitler? No, I would say more similar to Mussolini. People around you are convinced that Trump is a savior. It's because they see in him what they want to see. They see what they want to see. He says what they want to hear often. Does he deliver on all that? Most of the time, no. Sometimes, yes. Most of the time, no. But it doesn't matter. It's about the sales pitch. It's about the rhetoric. It's about. I mean, he's a demagogue. He says what people want to hear. When I say people, I mean people that generally already are on his team anyway. You notice that he used to speak up about, defending vaccines, especially the COVID vaccine. And now he's kind of quiet about that. He doesn't bring it up as much. You notice that? So, it's demagogue is the more accurate term, I think. I do think that he would probably not run for president again in 2028. By that time, he would be much older, and I just think he would be kind of done with it personally. He would be probably trying to still influence things, obviously, but yeah, I think this is it for him. Do you think J.D. Vance would run for president in 2028? Absolutely. Will Vance be, quote, next? Absolutely. I think, again, part of the appeal is that, he's representing the next generation of Republicans, and he's really tapped into that populism that is so dominant in the Republican Party. I think J.D. Vance is definitely someone who is pretty popular among the Republican populist base. So I think that's he's definitely going to be somebody that a lot of people who are already fans of Donald Trump are going to rally behind, I think, mostly. The other exciting thing about J.D. Vance is he is, like I said, he's young. He is a millennial. Yes, he's a millennial. He's younger than me. He's 3 years younger than me. This is crazy that a 39-year-old, the youth angle, this will excite a lot of younger Republican voters. However, I'm not sure if this is going to translate to independent voters or just the normies, as I call them, the people that don't pay that close of attention to politics. I don't know if he's going to resonate with them so much because he is very socially conservative. His economic positions are a little bit more all over the place. I think mostly he agrees with President Trump on most issues, but I think there are some areas where there's slight difference. I think he's actually a little bit more of a hardliner, for example, when it comes to abortion. As you can see here, he has a 100% rating by Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America. So he is a no exception guy, no gray area, very anti-abortion. And so that is definitely, I would say, a slight difference from Trump. Trump's more nuanced on that. I would say foreign policy, he's a little bit more mainstream Republican. He has, though, actively, consistently, vocally said, hey, we need to stop funding Ukraine in the Russo-Ukraine war that's been going on, because he thinks that, it's just not worth it for the United States to be involved in something that could add more instability around the world. So definitely brings up immigration a lot. It's notable when in 2016, when he criticized Trump, he criticized a lot of the rhetoric Trump was using in terms of Trump, scaremongering against immigrants, specifically those from Mexico. However, now he's all about, hey, we need to finish that wall that was never finished, barely built during Trump's presidency, actually. Economics, I would say he does kind of dip his toes into populism a little bit, but it's worth noting that this is a guy supported by the elites. Peter Thiel. He made his money as a venture capitalist. So as an investor, he moved to San Francisco in the tech industry. And he's somebody who, I think he would even like say this, probably he's got one foot in middle America because that's his upbringing, and one foot in kind of elite circles. And so I think that's part of his appeal. Now, J.D. Vance has not been in politics that long. He's only been a U.S. Senator since January 2023. You know, like broader appeal outside of the base of the Republican Party, I feel like it's a bit of a gamble. We don't know if he will have broader appeal. Again, it's the jury's out on whether he will have appeal to independents. I think he has like a grand master plan. I still think he secretly is not like the biggest Trump fan, but he's been able to like win him over. But yeah, he went to Yale. Okay. He's definitely more intelligent than Dan Quayle. I mean, I think JD has had his eye on the presidency since he first wrote that memoir, Hillbilly Elegy. I think this guy is one of those guys who wanted to be president his whole life. He did say that. I did not know Vance said he would not have certified the election in 2020. Yeah, I'll have to revisit that. Thanks for bringing that to our attention, Andrew. That sucks. I would have picked Tim Scott because Tim Scott, I feel like he would have attracted independent voters and broadened his support a little bit. And he's a nice dude. He's just a nice guy. I think one of the reasons why Trump was seriously considering someone like Tim Scott, an African American, was because he was hoping to broaden his appeal to the African American community. Drew, thank you. Hey, Mr. B, what are your thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard? She could have been a good choice as she could have appealed to women, non-interventionists, independents, and other disillusioned Democrats. Yeah, I used to think that, but she comes across more and more as just a grifter, somebody just trying to make money on being somebody on the outside of things. She's made a lot of money since she pivoted to the right, and she's changed her position. She's not as principled as I once thought she was. I used to actually defend her, but as far as non-interventionism, she has defended, certain acts of war when it's convenient for her to defend it. And more, she's basically just like been the contrarian to Democrats, no matter what, to a point where she's like once was strongly for universal health care, and now she's all of a sudden against it. What do you stand for? I don't know. That's why I kind of lost faith in her. She just comes across to me as a grifter. And I think a lot of her former supporters, same. Yeah, see, that's the thing. She just comes across more as a grifter these days. And so and instead of like standing for principles, just shifting her positions to appease whatever journalist she happens to be talking to. So yeah, it's been disappointing for sure. If you watch a stream of me from 4 or 5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, Tulsi's great. Even though Nikki Haley really isn't that moderate when it comes to, I don't know, like foreign policy, she's pretty, I think, to the right. And then economics, she's pretty to the right. Although social issues, she's more moderate, I would argue. Tyler really liked Nikki Haley. I understand. I think Haley would have had a much better chance to defeat the Democrats than Trump. I was surprised, how quickly the Republican Party turned against her. Also surprised how she all of a sudden just switched and said, okay, I'm endorsing Donald Trump. Do you think Josh Hawley would run in 2028? Oh, yeah, there's another good name. He's a younger guy, too. He's a young Gen Xer and is popular with the base, extremely popular with the base. Now, would he have more mainstream appeal? Not yet. I think he has to kind of tweak his brand if he wants to like have a better chance in 2028, because like he does not have broader support